What is up, you guys? Good morning. Just going to make a quick podcast. I kind of want to make this a weekly thing, depending on what's going on, or maybe like every 3 to 4 days, I'll make a podcast talking about certain topics that's going on with the Rams. So, right now, the number one thing is the logo. And when I scroll down Twitter, which is kind of where most people kind of look at stuff, maybe Facebook or Instagram, but right now on Twitter, it's mayhem. It is chaos. Some Rams fans even started petitions. Like, I won't go to that extreme. I'll just say that, you know what? For me, the logo seems like not enough detail. They could have done more work on it. I love the colors. I love the blue. I love the yellows. I like the idea of what they were trying to do. I just feel like they didn't put enough effort or enough detail on the logo itself, which kind of pisses me off because we waited like 2 years for this. But it is what it is. We got to move on, right? I don't think $1 billion corporation will really care what we have to think unless we're not buying the merchandise. So if you don't like the logo, don't buy the merchandise. It'll just pile up. No one will like it. And they'll eventually change it or modify it to our liking. There's nothing wrong with that. Make your fans happy, right? I still like the old school, like 1950s blue, yellow logo. I've seen it in yellow, so I'm just gonna say blue and yellow, but mainly it's blue, the white and blue one. I love it. I have like jackets, I have the jersey, I have the shirts, I got the hats, so that's my style. That's what I like. But I know some people like the 1970s and 80s, 90s, white, yellow, and blue. And then some people like the modern ones, but I'm more of the old school type. Well, if you don't like the stuff, don't buy it. Eventually they'll notice it, and that's how some of these corporations, they care about money. So you don't like it, don't buy it. But I do like the idea. I do like the colors, but I ain't buying the merchandise, man. That looks kind of trashy, but it looks basically like basic, you know what I mean? Like, there's other logos that don't look that nice and are pretty basic. The Niners logo is pretty basic. The Seahawks logo is basic. So the Rams could have done some modifications on their logo, and I would have been like, okay, you know what? This isn't that bad. This isn't half done. But that's where we are right now, arguing about logos. Another thing that I was noticing on Twitter was the Jared Goff slander, and I can't stand for any Jared Goff slander. I know that he didn't have the best year, but he did the best with what he had to work with. He had the 31st ranked offensive line by Pro Football Focus. We also had an injured offensive line. We have tackles playing at the guard position. Like, most of this stuff is McVay's fault. McVay is the reason why we didn't invest heavily when we should have on the offensive line, and it just annoys the shit out of me, but it is what it is. We had a bad 2019 season, and we still ended up 9-7, and we could have been 10-6, 11-5, but we also could have been 8-8, depending on some of the outcomes of these games. So the Rams are close, man, but we gotta be smart. We have to invest on the offensive line first and move forward. Basically, Jared Goff was one of the yard leaders for a while because he's out there throwing bombs and stuff down the field, but he also put a lot in jeopardy with throwing interceptions. Then you can't really rely on the 24th, 23rd ranked run offense, and your offensive line can't stay together until like the very end of the year when they started winning some more of these games after the Ravens game. So he was put in a bad situation. I say, you know what? The NFL is weird because he could have had the greatest 2017 and 2018 season, and just because he had a bad 2019 season, with all these things against him, we still ended up 9-7. So let's fix the offensive line, move forward, get Goff in the right direction. Let's get the Goff fence going yet again in 2020. So hopefully Goff and the Rams can get this offensive line going back to where it used to be. Also, with losing Todd Gurley, like, are the Rams going to go and get a new running back in the draft? Are we going to go and stick with, Henderson, Malcolm Brown, and John Kelly? Like, Henderson's got superstar potential. I consider him a copy of Dalvin Cook. I think both of those guys are very, very similar. Dalvin Cook is the running back for the Vikings, who was like the NFL leader in this last season. He's got the speed. He got a small frame, but he's got agility and he's hard to tackle. I feel that's what Henderson is. So should we give Henderson a full season to see what he's got, or should we draft a running back, in the second round in the draft? What if there's like a really, really good running back that's available in the draft in the second round, and do we pick him up? Kind of like when we had Trey Mason. I thought we had a pretty good running back in Trey Mason back in 2014, 2015, and we picked up Todd Gurley on the first round, and basically we kind of forgot about Trey Mason. That's what happened, and unfortunately it went the way it did, and you know what, the Rams did a good job getting a great running back, but it wasn't really a position of need at the time. But we still got a superstar running back for the next 5 years. What if we stick with Henderson, fix the O-line first, and then worry about the running back for next year, or get the running back now and try to work out a good offensive line and fix that offensive line? It all depends what the Rams got to do, man. But I like Henderson's high ceiling. I like his speed. I like his catching abilities. Fairly okay, but he's got that home run speed that kind of excites you. So hopefully, McVay gets this offensive line going. And one thing also is, it's not just the offensive line issues. It's also McVay. And we all know McVay is a pass-happy type of coach. He likes to, I would say, if you had a ratio how many times he likes to throw compared to run, he'd rather throw the ball 3 times and to the 1 run. I kind of noticed that last year. That's one of his worst attributes, is he just forces throws. He just wants to throw the ball down the field. I think he's more excited by that. Bringing in the new coaches like Kevin O'Connell, I think, will help the running game. I think Kevin O'Connell will get this running game going. He's very West Coast, offense-oriented, zone run scheme. I think they brought him in to make sure that running game gets going, because I think even Sean McVay doesn't trust himself, and I think that's why he went and picked up Kevin O'Connell. And I will be talking more about the Rams' new coaches, especially Kevin O'Connell and Brandon Staley, once a little bit more after I get some of this draft stuff out of the way and highlight videos. But the dude is a good West Coast offense coach, and I'll put examples of when he was allowed to call the plays for the Redskins, and they did a good job, man. They did good work in the end of the year last year. I noticed that once they changed Jay Gruden and put in Kevin O'Connell as the offensive coordinator. Now, Brandon Staley, I don't know much about him. All I know is that he was an outside linebackers coach, which is probably why we picked up Leonard Floyd, and we were able to get him on a 1-year deal. The thing with Brandon Staley is he's not like Wade Phillips 3-4 defense. Like, Wade Phillips 3-4 defense was man coverage on the outside with the corners and secondary, and then you had your pass rushers trying to get sacks, trying to get turnovers, and that was the number one thing, is creating turnovers, creating opportunities to get the ball back to the offense. Now, Vic Fangio is a hard-nosed, we're going to stop the run first and then get after the quarterback second. And that's what they did very well in the Chicago's 3-4 defense, which is what Brandon Staley knows more about, because he worked with Vic Fangio, and then he went to Denver, and they did something very similar there. And, well, they didn't really have the players to kind of do what they wanted to do, but he still is able to probably imitate that with the Rams. Now, a big pet peeve of mine was the Rams could not stop the run with Wade Phillips calling the shots. It just couldn't do it. 2018 was like the best year they could have, because they had like Ndamukong Suh, Brockers, and Donald on the interior, and they had a decent pass rush on the outside with Ebukam and Fowler. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't elite. And that's one of the things about Wade Phillips is you thought he'd be an elite defensive coordinator, which he was a decent defensive coordinator. Now, Brandon Staley could be terrible, or he can be very, very good, or he can be average. So that's one of the things that scared me when we let go of Wade Phillips is how is Brandon Staley going to be? And hopefully it's, that he's an elite. But the Rams defense right now is set up to where they're not really, their identity is really not known yet. We got a guy like Leonard Floyd, we got Ashawn Robinson on the defensive line paired up with Aaron Donald. You still don't know who's going to be the starter at the nose tackle position. You really don't know who your linebacker is going to be because none of them have played that long with the Rams, and some of them are either traded or they were injured last year. So you still don't know what you have with the interior of the linebacking core. But at least we know what the secondary looks like with Troy Hill, David Long Jr., John Johnson, Taylor Rapp, and Jalen Ramsey. So the defense kind of freaks me out right now because there's uncertainty. The offense is a few pieces away, like a guard away, a center away from being really, really good again and really stable and getting this offense going and moving in the right direction. Now the defense is where you're able to remake it to what you want, which is a good thing when you're kind of like rebuilding in a way, especially that defense, to modify it to what you like. But we know what we had before, we just don't know what we're going to get in the future, if that makes sense. So that's one of the things that freaks me out right now. But other than that, man, this team is looking like they're very few pieces away from being elite again. And hopefully the Rams can go get these guys in the draft. We still have some type of cap room. So if there's a guy that's still available and want to out there and spend a little bit of money, we can still get a decent player. A lot of available linebackers in free agency still. There's still some pass rushers. That's mainly what we need. I think in the draft you can go get yourself a defensive tackle. I'll go with Greg Gaines or Sebastian Joseph Day. And in the offensive line, the Rams have question marks. We have a lot of tackles. We have like 4 tackles still on the team. We have 1 center, we have one legit guard, and that's basically all we have right now. So the offensive line is going to need some work, and receivers, we're good. Running backs, I feel like we're good with Henderson, especially quarterback, we're good with Goff. So not too many question marks, but you want to make sure when you go into the draft, you're drafting for best available. You don't want to go draft for need because then you let other talented players kind of walk away because you have a need. So hopefully the Rams can get that fixed prior to the draft. And that's basically it for today's podcast. Let me know if you have any questions. Leave a like, leave a share. And like always, you guys, go Rams.